Welcome back to the Raleigh Oaks Baseball Club here on OOTP 25. Last time, we won the whole goddamn thing. The Raleigh Oaks first World Series in their franchise history, as you can see here. We got the champions page, the 2043 World Series winners. Finished 108 and 54. Uh, Incredible season score, obviously. Just a slow scroll through the roster here. Guys who actually got, John Drum, who pitched one game for us, gets gets a ring. J.R. Hunter gets a ring. This guy who we picked up of waivers gets a ring. But yeah, Raleigh Oaks World Series champions, and now we are ready to embark on the offseason here to get ready for the 2044 campaign and try to defend our championship and possibly repeat even. Was going to play some Fortnite OG today because that dropped and I am the exact age that is made for. Technically, I did play some solo, dropped at Fatal Fields, my beloved Fatal Fields, played a few games, and then matchmaking broke. So now I'm on here doing the offseason. And look at this, we've got a bunch of stuff already popping up here. Our GM retired. He won a World Series and he's like, boom, I'm out. Don't need that anymore. And then our team trainer also retired. So we need to find ourselves a new assistant GM and a new team trainer. We also have a new budget. We're going to have $266 million this season, $210 million for a team payroll. That should be a decent change. Yeah, we have the 12th budget in Major League Baseball now, which is pretty damn good. You know, you win a World Series, you'd expect it to go up like that. I mean, it's just trending upward year after year. We're in that 270, 266 range now, almost quite at 270, as we know. Yeah, solidly like a middle tier sort of team in budget now. We're not going to have the most money to spend because we are already committed to spending a decent amount here. If we look at our salary page, we've got Jake Graham for at least 2 more seasons, possibly 3. We've got Rocky Gusty for probably 2 more seasons. Ed Osterley is a free agent after the end of this, or currently. So we're not going to be bringing him back. Wilson Morales, we have to make a decision on him. He is a team option. I would imagine that we are going to pick that up because he is a franchise legend at this point. He's basically our best pitcher, if not obviously our best pitcher. So we are going to pick up his option. So that 20.5 we are going to be on the hook for this season. And then Nesty Rojas is the one that we need to get out from under. The plan this year was to play him, hopefully pump up his value, and then just dump him in this offseason for whatever. If we have to eat 60% of it, we'll do it. As long as we're not going to pay 100% of this deal, that's something I'm interested in because I just do not think that we're going to be able to consistently. We don't want to be paying this when we signed him when he was looking like he was going to be a superstar. Instead, he kind of fell off. And this year, obviously, was a pretty solid player for us. Gets his ring, but we're going to be definitely shopping him. He is not going to be a Raleigh Oak in 2044. Luis Griego, we know his thing. He's a very, very good player. Unfortunately, very injury prone now. Only played 18 games this season. Did get the ring. He did come back at the very end of the postseason. And, you know, when the guy is healthy, he is an incredible player. But the past couple years, the injuries have started to really take a toll here. Only 100 games last year. Only 18 games this year. I mean, it was just littered with injuries this season. He, started off with knee soreness, and then he had a sprained knee that took him out for 7 weeks, and then he tore back muscle for 3 to 4 months, and then he had another sprained knee for 8 to 9 weeks, and he also had a setback on that. So, Griego, and he's fragile now. If you remember, I tried to bump his durability up before he got the fragile. Where was it this offseason? Yeah, unsuccessfully completed his training to strength and conditioning, and then boom, we unsuccessfully do that, and then he has a season from hell with the injuries. So Luis Griego, unfortunately, is fragile now. I'm sure we'll throw him in the dev lab to get that possibly a little bit better because we need him to stay healthy. I also don't like that this BABIP is so low now. Is that, like, recent? I guess maybe March was when that happened. So that's kind of annoying. But overall, he's still a very good player. We obviously have Juan Ramirez locked up for a long-term deal through 2049 potentially. We have Santiago Mendoza locked up for a while. He moved to the rotation this year for us and was very good. We have Edgar Ortega locked up. Not the biggest contract, but it is going to be disappointing because, as we know, he's not a starter anymore. So we might try to look for get out from under him as well this offseason, but I highly doubt that's going to be something we can move. And then Juan Nazario, we're going to have to make a decision on. He has 2 more years of team control, and he is just an all-world closer. I mean, 80 grade stuff, 80 grade fastball, 80 grade sinker. The guy is just a lights out closer. The thing about him, though, is that he is a single inning guy. He only has 25 stamina, and he's fragile. So, he is all world, but do we want to extend him long term into his 30s as a single inning closer? Probably not. Do we want to trade him right now while he's probably at the top of his value? Maybe. I would definitely be open to it simply because we have Luis Carmona. Luis Carmona is just primed to be the guy to take over for Nazario here, as I accidentally back out of that. I mean, he's honestly looking like he's even better than Nazario because, one, he can go multi-innings. Two, he's also got 80 grade stuff, and it's not basically 2 fastballs. His is a fastball and a curveball. He's got the home runs allowed. They both have the same control. He is not fragile. So I'm thinking that Carmona might just move into being our main back end of the bullpen guy. He basically was through the whole postseason, as Nazario did get hurt because, as we know, he's fragile. So honestly, Nazario might be somebody I'm looking to possibly flip here this offseason as his arbitration is set to go up into the $9 million range as a single inning closer. So we might be interested in doing that. We'll have to see how things shake out. Kyle Cooperman is also somebody who's going to start getting more expensive here. He is our starting center fielder, but he is definitely all glove. He's the 80 grade range, 80 grade center fielder, 80 grade speed. We love him, but he's fragile now. He's starting to get more expensive. He's basically all glove. I mean, he's a decent bat, but it's nothing too crazy. We might try to hang on to him for like 1 season, but I highly doubt we end up paying him for this $8.5 million after this season. So he might be around just for like 1 more year, and then we might get rid of him. Eric Oliar is also somebody we're going to have to make a decision on at some point because we can't pay everybody. That's just not going to be a thing that can happen. He's starting to get a bit more expensive here. He's going to be even more expensive than Cooperman, at least projected to be after this season. They're both 5.5 projected for this offseason, or heading into 2044, rather. And Oliar, he's solid. He's a solid, like, 2-WAR, triple-digit, like, lower-end triple-digit sort of guy. He's not your 3-hitter. He's not your 4-hitter. He's like your 5-6 hitter in, like, an ideal lineup. And he's solid. He can play 3 infield positions all quite well. He brings a prankster personality class to the group. But it's just, I don't think that he's going to be a guy that we pay long term. He's probably somebody we're looking more so to flip. This offseason, maybe not. Next offseason, probably. Mike Rubin is also somebody who I think is just on his way out at this point. He's definitely somebody we're going to try to shop around for maybe like some bullpen help or maybe just some other, whatever. Because, I don't really think he's a starter anymore. He just never really panned out. You would think his ratings would lend himself to being a better hitter than he's actually been. If you look at his major league stats here, he's put up 2 WARs, 3 straight seasons through 2040 through 2042, and then this year lost his shortstop job. Was hurt a decent amount. I think he had like 2 different injuries. He tore his labrum, partially tore his labrum, and then he had a bunch of like nagging injuries throughout the year. And he just really lost his shortstop job. I mean, our shortstop down the stretch in the playoffs was Will Caffin, and we like Will Caffin. Right now he's slotted to be our shortstop. We like the Aussie. I think he's going to continue to be our shortstop. He plays a solid shortstop. He had a 10 ZR there this season. So yeah, Mike Rubin is somebody we might look to possibly trade here this offseason. And if we do bring him back, he is more of a utility bench player than he would be a starter. As we can see here, he can play all 3 infield positions, second, third, and short, all very well. And once he plays them more to get the ratings up, he should be able to play a decent corner outfield too. So do we want to pay him $3 million-ish to be a utility man? Maybe. He could be like a Tommy Edman type, but probably a lesser, more of a bat, to be honest, because his bat really did drop off this year quite a bit. It was not that 90 WRC plus anymore. It was a 79. And then down here, we've just got a bunch of guys who right now are getting paid like pretty chump change, but at some point we are going to have to think about what we're going to do with these guys. Like we already have Amancio locked up, our catcher of the future. He is slotted to be that for a long, long time. We have him locked up on that very, very team-friendly deal through possibly his age 36 season. But then down here, we've got a bunch of guys who maybe they end up being long-term pieces, maybe they don't. Will Caffin, possibly. Somebody we might look to sign long-term at some point. Luis Carmona. I'm honestly tempted to sign him long-term and just kind of get him locked in as like that long-term closer, long-term main stopper for us. Mike Cinquemani has turned into a pretty damn good starter. We might look to possibly give him an extension. Tariq Bin Abdou just really hasn't panned out to be what we thought he was going to be, unfortunately. Former second round pick in 2038. He's really just kind of like a bullpen arm at this point. Like, he can give you innings in the rotation, but he's definitely not an ideal guy. He's not a top end of the rotation guy like you thought he would be when we first were looking at him. So he's not really somebody we're looking to extend long term. So it's really Caffin, Carmona, Cinquemani, and then some of our like real young guys like Luis Rodriguez is obviously somebody we're going to want to keep around for a long time here. Him and Amancio are like the face of this franchise, I would say, for the next like 10 years, ideally. Jesus Pineda is very, very good. He was center field for us this season. Because Cooperman got hurt, and he's basically one reason why we can afford to possibly get rid of Cooperman if we want to, but we would like to keep depth. So I'm thinking that Cooperman is probably going to be around for one more season. Henniger might be somebody we look to flip this offseason just because he's kind of like the odd man out. Like he's like outfielder number 6 at this point. We know about Daniel Langarisa now. He's really, really good. He's potentially a really, really good bat to have in this team. We're going to probably want him locked up at some point if we can, if he continues to go on this trajectory that he's had here in the big leagues. And then Santiago Tapia, 24 years old. He's already had a couple of years of big league service time. He had 271 ABs in 2041, 425 in 2042, and then 349 this year because I think he was banged up a bit. He's interesting because his profile doesn't jump out as like something where you're like, oh, this guy should be paid like $30 million a year, but that's absolutely what he's going to want. So maybe he's somebody we look to possibly flip at some point. Not now, but maybe in a year or two, we might try to look to flip him. But right now, he's going to be on the team because he's not getting paid too much. He's only projected to go up to 2.6 this season. I think that is totally fine. And then if you look at the finances, we don't even really have that much money to extend people because we already have a bunch locked in here at the top for like Jake Graham and Rocky Gusty and Nesty Rojas. But if we can like open up some stuff, and I think we have player development, at 20 million right now, so we can drop this down a little bit as well as the scouting. Probably not the scouting because I already dropped the scouting down at like 12. But we can possibly drop this down a little bit. I don't really want to, but we could. But there are ways we can open up some more money for extensions. We'll be looking at some of the guys in salary arbitration who we're probably not going to bring back or flip. So basically, there are ways we can open up money and possibly look to extend some of the guys we think are long-term pieces, like Carmona. I would say, like, ranked in order of importance to extend long-term, it's probably like Rodriguez, Carmona, Pineda. You could possibly swap Pineda and Carmona as like 2-3 or 3-2, depending on which you think. Then maybe Cinquemani. And then I would say maybe Caffin, or maybe Caffin's a bit higher because he's the shortstop. I don't really know. But those are the main guys. Rodriguez, Carmona, Cinquemani, and Caffin are the main guys we are looking to extend. And Langarisa. And Langarisa as well is in that mix somewhere as well. Obviously, I'm not looking to extend them all right now this offseason. But I would probably want to see Langarisa do it more because we don't want to end up in another Edgar Ortega situation. Possibly even with Rodriguez as well. Might want to see him do it for another season. And then maybe next offseason we try to extend it. But he is, already projected to get like $6 million in next offseason. So we might be smart to try to lock him up now because I highly doubt that this guy would completely fall off a cliff ratings-wise. But, I guess you never really know. And then there's also somebody like Juan Trujillo, but he's definitely not as good as we thought. he had some really good seasons for us in the bullpen, or like solid seasons. I shouldn't say really good. He had some solid seasons in the bullpen. Never really panned out to be that starter type guy we thought he was going to be because he could never develop this changeup. And then obviously we know that he is out with a torn labrum right now, so he'll probably come back from that even worse. He's fragile. Definitely not somebody we're looking at to extend. David Rosales here is somebody who we like as like a depth option. Definitely not really a starter type with this lack of power bat and really just all BABIP, but a very good defensive infielder who could give you some decent like contact hitting off the bench. All right, so just like a rough outline of what the team could possibly look like and what holes we might look to plug up here in the offseason. When it comes to pitching, I would say that these four guys are 100% going to be in the rotation. Wilson Morales, Jake Graham, Mike Cinquemani, and Santiago Mendoza. Those guys are all set in stone. And then we have like a fifth starter spot opened up that could be anybody in the organization right now, or it could be somebody we pick up. We have a decent amount of young talent of guys who could be like 45 overall sort of guys in that fifth starter spot. Tariq Ben Abdoud is an option for that fifth starter spot. Bob Durham is possibly an option for that fifth starter spot. Chris Bowman, maybe not. He's kind of fallen off a bit. I don't really think we would go with Bobby Harlow, but I mean, yeah, he's dropped down to a 45. If we went with Bobby Harlow, he'd be more of like a follower. I guess we could, if we decide to bring back Eric Lucy here, who is out of option years, set to make $3.2 million. He could possibly be an option for that fifth starter spot. He drops down to a 45. If we're going to give it to a 45, though, I'd probably prefer it to be like a prospect. We've got somebody like Luis Banazal down in AAA. He's a 22-year-old, almost 23-year-old. His sinker isn't quite fully developed, but he's like got decent enough ratings to where he could possibly be a fifth starter. I don't like the home run allowed, though. Not a big fan of that. We've got like a 28-year-old named Saturnino Mondreal. He's Brazilian, right-hander. He's fragile. He was in AAA for us this season, put up a decent stat line down there. Has some really good personality. He's a bit of an older guy. He's 29. He's about to be 29. But he might be able to hold his own in that fifth starter spot. We'll have to see. Brad Nisley is one of our prospects, 12th round pick in 2038. He's a possible option there. Don't really love what his sinker is at right now, so that's kind of what's going to hold him back. I guess the Canadian man here, Elaine, could possibly be an option, but we don't really love what he gives us. He's kind of like a soft tossing, finds the zone, throws strikes, gives you a decent amount of innings, but like his stuff isn't great. The bad stuff, it's just like 3 subpar pitches, and he's just more of like a guy who relies on his stuff. Relies on his control rather in throwing strikes, but I don't really think his control is that great. Like if this was in the 60s, maybe I would be like, oh, okay, he can get away with like subpar stuff, but like average movement and like slightly above average control, not really what we're looking at to be like a fifth starter type guy. And then when it comes to the lineups, I'm thinking it could look something like this. Just ignore this actual lineup. This is just by order of where I put them in here. This lineup here is not the actual where we're going to bat these guys. But catcher, obviously Amancio. The backup catcher, maybe it's going to be Sandoval. He's only slotted to make 2.4 in arbitration, so we could possibly bring him back. But also at the same time, like, he hasn't really shown me anything. So we might possibly try to bring in like a really good defensive catcher to back up Amancio. Just because, like, hey, if Amancio's not going to play, we're obviously not going to get his bat level at that catcher spot. So, like, if he needs a day off, I would rather just have a guy who goes in there with like 80 grade catcher ability or like framing or blocking or just a really good defensive catcher to back him up, captain type guy, something like that. So I'm not sure if we're going to bring back Sandoval. We also have Dorsainville, who I don't really think it would be the backup, but he's like an option to have in the organization. He still has an option year, so he'll probably be around at like the AAA level. Obviously, first base is Juan Ramirez. He's our dude at first base. Second base, right now I'm thinking it's going to be Tapia. I just think that's his best spot to be. Even though he was not good this year. Overall, though, he's had like this year he was not good. Last year he had a 3. He held his own in 2041. but I still think it's his best position is second base. We could also obviously put Langarisa there, but I think Langarisa is better suited to be either a first base or DH, and obviously first base is Ramirez, who's very good at first base. Langarisa could potentially be very good at first base too, but like we can't play them both at first base. We also have somebody like Gabe Grennan, who's we're looking at more as a bench player, but we'll get into the bench guys here in a second. So like third base, I'm thinking it's either going to be Rocky Gusty because he has been our DH, but now that we have Langarisa and Oliar is somebody who we're maybe bringing back, I think it's probably going to be like Gusty plays third and Oliar we bring back for like one season to like mix in as like a backup guy and get like games every like third or fourth game at certain positions. Uh we might also look for Ruben to be that sort of guy to be like every third or fourth game at like certain positions, maybe some corner outfield like we said as well. Really utilize that super utility role he could possibly bring to us. And then shortstop, that's just going to be Will Caffin. That's just set. He's our Aussie shortstop. We love him. We love the Aussies. Left field, obviously going to be Luis Rodriguez. Center field right now I'm thinking is going to be Pineda because he's got the better bat. And he's very good in center field. He put up a 10 ZR in center in only 88 games started, 91 games overall. So, I mean, the guy can hold his own in center field for sure. And then Cooperman would be his backup, mixing in with Henniger, who we might actually end up bringing back because he's still making league minimum. He still has an option. So, like, I think it would be silly to trade him because he's actually not like the sixth outfielder. We actually don't actually have as many outfielders as I thought we did, and he would still mix in a little bit. Maybe not being like an every third day sort of guy, but definitely an option on our bench. And then right field, Luis Griego. That's self-explanatory. We think that he's the better right fielder between him and Rodriguez. And then the DH, like I said, is Langarisa. And then on the bench, like I said, it's going to be a combination of like something like Mike Rubin, Gabe Grennan is an option, Eric Oliar probably going to be around for one more season, I would have to imagine. Edgar Ortega. That's where things start to get messy because like I should probably make it more something like this because Grennan is making league minimum. He has an option, so we could probably go down to AAA. Whereas Ortega obviously is not going to go to AAA. And we might not be able to flip him because I doubt people are going to want to take on his contract. The only thing that gives me hope for being able to flip Nesty Rojas for anything is that he put up a very good season this year, so theoretically his trade value should be a bit better than it was last season when we tried to trade him in the offseason with this coming off of this sort of year. Oh yeah, we're locking in Luis Rodriguez right now through his age 35 season, a long-term 13-year contract. He only won in 11 years through his age 33 season. So I was like, hey, let's just throw on a couple extra years. The final one being a team option with a buyout for $1.8 million. We even talked him down a little bit. This guy is going to be a part of our team for a long time. This year, he'll be making $1 million flat. Then it goes up to 4.6, then 9 million, then 13 million, then 15 million. Then he hits arbitration. Then he hits free agency rather. His first 3 years post in free agency era would be 16.5 million, and then it goes up to 17.5 million for 5 years, 4 years guaranteed, with that fifth year being a team option. I mean, I think a 13-year, $179.6 million deal, 163.9, Jesus Christ, I can't talk, being guaranteed. I think that's pretty damn good. That's pretty damn team friendly. So Luis Rodriguez, we're submitting this baby. And then we're going to go ahead and offer this to Luis Carmona. You know, we're overpaying a little bit for these first 2 seasons, but then these years we're really getting him for what I think is going to be a bargain for a really good stopper at the back end of their bullpen. Lock him up through his arbitration years, all his team control, plus 2 more years of free agency years. So through his age 31, potentially that year being a team option. Boom, we're doing that. We're submitting the offer for Carmona. Oh, and then also I forgot to look at the assistant GM and team trainer roles. We also have some minor league vacancies as well, but obviously I'm not going to go through every single minor league vacancy. But as far as team trainer goes, let's just take a quick look at this here. Prevent arms, I mean, I'm still missing that one trainer that we had that was just like legendary in everything. He was like everything was like excellent or legendary, even in rehab, even in prevention. Um, I will say I've started liking the guys who have good rehab because the guys, at least maybe it's placebo, but it seems like the guys do come back a little bit better, and they're not like guaranteed to be like shit when they come back from injuries. So like maybe somebody like this, I don't love this fatigue recovery is poor, but like we tend to do a decent job of fatigue recovery anyways. Like we limit guys to only playing like if a guy drops down to like I think it's like 96 stamina, then we bench him. Like that's just how it is. That's like our overall organizational theory. So this isn't really too important. At least I don't think. So like having a guy who's legendary at preventing arm injuries, good at preventing other, okay at preventing back is whatever. It's not ideal, but it's not the worst. And then average at legs, well, everything else here is excellent. I think Joe Wolf is our top choice right now. Yeah, I think we're just gonna go ahead and offer Joe Wolf the deal here. 0 years of experience, but we believe. And then you're not catching me this year, game. I haven't played this in a bit, and that's been my downfall the past couple off seasons, is that we get through a season, and then I don't record for like a week or two, and then I hop back in here, and I'm not in the rhythm, and we sim a day, and then I'm immediately like, fuck, we screwed up the dev lab again. Not this year, game. Not today. Alrighty, we have chosen our 8 members of the dev lab here, or 8 dev lab training, whatever the hell you want to call it. First one, Luis Rodriguez. We are trying to improve his plate discipline. All this other stuff is already like elite level. If we can get this eye up to being like where he's not a guy who's going to be like Tim Anderson level eye, I would love to do that. So we're trying to tap into this eye, possibly get a bit of a potential boost as well. We would love to see it. And then a couple strength and conditioning ones. Luis Griego here. We want to get this up to normal, maybe bordering on normal. Whatever we can possibly do, we want to get this improved because we want Luis Griego on the field. Then Luis Carmona, the guy that we just offered this big extension to. We want him to be on the field. So we are trying to get his injury proneness. We're trying to do what we did with Griego last offseason, where we're trying to go, hey, you're normal right now. Let's get you bumped up the durable. It didn't work with Griego. We're hoping it works with Carmona. He does have the adaptability. Who knows if it works, but we're trying. Then Daniel Langarisa. We have 4 generate bat speeds here. The first one, Daniel Langarisa. If we can get this power developed, everything else is already really good. If we can tap into this power, get like a Juan Padilla type power boost, that would be fantastic. Will Caffin, same thing with him. We could go the eye, but I decided to go with the power, make him a bit more of a weapon offensively. That would be incredible. Get this power bumped up with the avoid K, that would be insane. Then Jaquan Trout Eggerson, who was one of our prospects, already looking like he's going to be a damn good bat. Doesn't really have a defensive position. He can play the corners in the outfield decently well. Might be able to like fake it at first base, but he's more of like a DH, bad corner outfield guy. But his bat looks legit. We all know I love these gap power eye profiles, but he also has the BABIP to go with it. The avoid K isn't the worst in the world. He only struck out 30% of the time, plus he walked 22.8% of the time. 23% is all split between Rookie Ball, Honolulu, Fond du Lac, and Trenton in 2043. Was a quick riser this season, as you can see, looking like he's an absolute stud. Don't know if he's going to be on the big league roster to start because he's not Rule 5 eligible. We don't have to put him on there, so he's probably going to develop a little bit more, get him some time in AA and AAA before we get him up to the big leagues. But if we can get this power developed even more, that would be incredible. Mike Rubin also. Let's just tap into this. Make you a bat like we think you can be. If we can get this power maybe up to the potential up to 70, maybe the power currently up to 60, that'd be great. We would love to see that. And then I didn't really see like an obvious option for our 8th spot, so we went with Luis Banazal, who is that 22-year-old, almost 23-year-old Venezuelan Italian pitcher we have in AAA, former scouting discovery. He's already durable, which we like, and he has this sinker, which hasn't quite developed, so it should be a pretty easy improve his secondary pitch with the sinker. He already has fastball cutter, kind of like a Lance Lynn type repertoire here with a bunch of different fastball types. But who knows? Maybe we can turn it into something good. Maybe we can't. It's kind of odd that he has like a fastball sinker cutter profile and he has 45 home run allowed. You would usually think that a guy who's trying to like just be a Lance Lynn type pitcher would be able to like keep the ball in the ballpark, but I don't know. What do I know? So it turns out Eric Oliar actually doesn't want the craziest contract. I would not give him 9 years, but like I might be interested in giving him something like this, where we buy out the rest of his team control and then like 1 year of free agency. We take this off the team option. We don't give him the starting lineup guarantee. We say something like 5, maybe like an 8 for that year, maybe like a 10.5, then maybe like an 11.5. Okay, he doesn't love that. So what if we go like this? Probably doesn't love it because his arbitration's way lower. We'll just give him exactly what he's projected to get in arbitration, and then we'll drop this down to 7.5, 10.5, and then we'll do 12.5, but we'll give him that year. I don't want to guarantee him that. Maybe we'll say, hey, if you get like a bogus, like, dude, if you get MVP, we'll give you an extra $2 million, dude. Okay, boom. I'm giving him this. So yeah, Eric Oliar, we're going to extend him. He's going to be around through his team control plus 1 year of free agency. I'm fine. He's valuable. He's not promised a starter role. Even if he ends up being like a super utility backup guy, I'm cool with this. So we're just out here shopping Juan Nazario. I'm kind of leaning towards not trading him this season, to be honest, just because like what are we going to upgrade? You know what I mean? Like, I guess we could possibly add another starter. Like, that's the main thing, is that, like, if we trade him, it's probably to upgrade the rotation some more and get back to having, like, 5 really, really good starters. Because in the lineups, like, we're already, like, a logjam at, like, every position. So I don't think we're trying to get, like, a hitter for him. It would definitely be, like, trying to trade this elite closer for, like, a legit number 2 or 3 starter. Like a 60, 65 type rating guy, maybe like a couple bullpen arms thrown into the back end of the deal as well. But I mean, if we just look at what's available, there isn't really too much that they're offering here. There's like this 30-year-old guy on the Marlins who like I don't really love. I would say the best guy I've seen so far is Nate Wells from the Reds, who's 26, almost 27, right-hander. He has been steadily going up, or I guess this year he went down, but he's a solid starting pitcher. It's just, would we want to trade like the best closer in the league for this guy? Maybe not. Probably not. I mean, I don't know. I'm attached to Nazario, but Nate Wells is definitely the best guy I've seen so far. There's a couple other 65s here, like Jeff Gardner. I like his ratings. Don't love this. I would not want to commit to another fragile guy if we're going to trade a current fragile guy. There's Ron Perdue. Don't love the control. Don't love these 2 pitches. Jake Oles from the White Sox. We don't want to trade for this guy long term. There's this guy on the Red Sox who I like his outlook, but I don't love the 45 control. He hasn't really proven it in the big leagues yet. He put up 1 year of a 3 WAR, where it was he dominated. I wouldn't say dominated. He had a really good FIP, but then I guess his defense was bad behind him or something. But I wouldn't really want to commit to him. But then I haven't even gotten past the Royals here because I'm just seeing Amari Collar, and I'm like, wait a minute, he's a 60? Amari Collar is back to being a damn good starter. So we know Amari Collar's story. He was a top pick for us in Los Angeles. He was the 34th overall pick in the supplemental round by us in 2029 with the Los Angeles Angels. He was a top prospect for a long time, came up to the big leagues, had a couple decent seasons in Los Angeles. You could see here he was like a decent back end of the bullpen guy, but never developed. I think he got hurt, and then he was kind of like never really was great. Spent a shit ton of time in the minor leagues, and then we picked him up in Raleigh was a follower for us in 2041, was decent. And then 2042 goes to San Diego, puts up a decent year in 17 starts. I guess he must have got traded to them in 2040. Yeah, at the deadline, he goes to Kansas City, was really good there too. So he had a really good 2042, and then he put up a 3.5 WAR this season at age 35 in Kansas City. I mean, hell yeah, dude. Like, I'm not gonna trade for the guy, but hell yeah. And he gets himself. They even extended him. They have him extended through 2038, or not 2030, through age 38. 2046. This is a vesting option the last year, but I mean, hell yeah, dude. Amari Collar, the resurgence. But then after Amari Collar here, Chad Joseph. Okay. That's somebody I might be. I don't love the fragile, but like, if we're talking about like talent that I would want to trade for, it's this guy. He's the number one option. The stamina at 45 is not the best, but it's starter doable. He's fragile, which we don't love. He only played 12 games this season because I'd imagine, yeah, he shoulder inflammation last year, surgery to remove a bone spore this year. God, dude, this guy is good. This guy is good. He's on my radar. I'll say that much. He's on my radar. Randy Longo, no, not really interested in that. 22-year-old on the Twins. I mean, he looks like he could be good. He looks like he could be good. He looks like he could be really good. But do we want to commit to that? He's pitched 2 years in the big leagues here with not a small sample size, and he still has not developed all this stuff, all this movement, all this home runs allowed, all this control, all these two secondary pitches he has. So it's like, when the hell are you going to develop that, man? Why is he also looking like, I don't know, his facial expression is looking like he's being like, you want to trade for me? What? Like, why is he making that face? He's had like one injury his whole career. You know he's got some sort of like rich genes because he's from Manhattan Beach. He's on my radar too, but I don't know. Earl Spotswood from the Yankees? That could be a thing. That could be a thing too. Possibly. Any other teal ink popping up here? Trimboli, he's fragile, not as good as the other guy from the Dodgers. So really, it's the guys that we're interested in. It's Spotswood. It's Kearney Lane. And I would say the number one guy is probably Josephat. Chad Madman Josephat. The thing that's stopping me from wanting him, though, is the injury proneness. So I would say number one is him. Number two is probably Kearney Lane. And then number three, like a solidly number three, would be Earl Spotswood in my mind. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he should be number two. He's had a couple injuries. I don't know. I think it's still Kearney Lane's number two, Spotswood's three, and Josephat's one. Like, this guy is like, I mean, just look at this guy. Look at this guy's page. Look at his profile. You're gonna look me in the eye and tell me that this profile is bad? That this profile wouldn't be like a legit ace? Like, I think this guy would be insane. We want this scouting to go through before I pull the trigger on it, though, but I mean, if we could just somehow get around that fragility, I mean, I'd be curious what we could possibly even get him for. Would it have to be Nazario? Could we, like, trade not Nazario for him? Could we go, like, maybe even Jaquan Eggerson, who doesn't really have a role on this team? Could we do something like that? Could we do something like, let's just kind of offer them, like, let's offer them this guy, Joe Dorchinez. He's a shortstop we have. We did not draft this guy. He was drafted the season before we took over. Really, really good defensive shortstop, obviously, but we have our shortstop. We have Will Caffin. We even have Ruben, who can play shortstop. We have Rosales. So, like, if we trade this guy, it's not the end of the world. I do think the guy is pretty decent, but it's not the end of the world if we trade him. So, like, let's just kind of see what they're interested in. Let's offer him and see what they say when we sim a day. All right, so they said no way, but it's not like, hey, no way and give us Nazario. It's no way and give us Mike Rubin, who, or this guy, who I would not be opposed to getting rid of. I think we want to keep Vince Yates around the organization. This guy could be like generational type power hitter. I don't think we want to trade him. I mean, I've talked about wanting to trade Tapia because like we've already been locked out of offering contracts, by the way, because I literally he wanted like a long-term deal. I was like, oh, how about if we give you something like we gave Oliar? What if we give you something like we gave Oliar, where we buy your arbitration plus 1 year, and he was not interested? So I was like, okay, what if we just offer you like 100,000 less than your arbitration? And he was like, fuck you, buddy, I'm cutting off negotiations. So I'm like, okay, we can't offer this guy, but he wanted like a really, really long-term, like 30 million type deal. And as I've talked about, I don't think he is that type of guy. He's a guy who, to me, outperforms his ratings. I just don't think this profile is something that puts up a 4 and a 3 WAR. He's overage, and not even like a full season of starting, like 99 games started, 82 games started. So I don't know if I want to trade him for this guy though, but like I would not mind trading this guy. Like, yes, he could be good, but also we've had such shit luck with pitching prospects that, like, we have dudes like this where you're like, oh, this guy's going to be insane. And then he gets to the big leagues and he's like a 45 potential, he's like a reliever. Or he just doesn't even make it to the big leagues because he blows at his elbow 3 times before he makes it to Double-A. And this guy, already fragile. So, like, if they would give me Josephat, this guy, the guy we were going to trade Nazario for Joe Dorchinez and Alejandro Aguilera, I'm going to do that shit, man. Absolutely. Give us Chad Josephat, who is set to make 3.5 this season. Hell yes. We're doing this. We are doing this right now. Joe Dorchinez, really good to glove shortstop, and Alejandro Aguilera, something like that. I know exactly what the name is. I don't know. I'm not Spanish. I'm white. I'm a gringo. I know. But this guy looks like he could be good. Maybe they can develop him. I'm doing this. Josephat coming off a season where he only pitched 12 games because he's had back-to-back serious injuries. So, you know, I think it's realistic enough. We're doing this. Chad Josephat, lock it in, baby. Lock it in. The fan increase is amazing, and I'll probably throw him on something like a 95 pitch count just because he's got a 45 stamina. He's coming off a season where he only threw 12 starts, so we probably don't want him getting like Jake Graham level hook, I would say, where like Jake Graham, we're trying to have him be like our like Haas, our innings eater sort of guy. He did have the 1 year of 200 innings after these 3 straight years of 200 innings, but then, you know, he got hurt. Now he's fragile. But, you know, we still believe. And also, like, I believe we bumped it up for Morales as well, didn't we? Yes, his hook is also up there. He doesn't have a pitch count. He threw 191 this season. So, yeah, I think that is something that we can absolutely do. And then Josephat comes in here. He would go into the rotation, and it would probably be something like Josephat, Mendoza, Cincamani. And then I think that we're just going to keep Nazario. I'm not going to fuck around. We're just going to run it back for at least 1 more year of having Nazario and Carmona. Maybe give him an 8th plus later high leverage. And I think this back end of the bullpen is just going to like flat out dominate. We've got the two best relievers in the game. We've got a starting rotation of Wilson Morales, Jake Graham, Chad Josephat, Santiago Mendoza. My thing's starting to get a little sticky here. And Sinkamani. As we go to settings, remember the tip. If you feel like getting a little bit slow, you go to no limitation here, just reselect it, boom, instantly it's more snappy. So yeah, 1 through 5, back out of the bullpen, better than anybody in baseball. We've got guys like Kurt Holmes coming back. Arturo Mendoza, who was a Rule 5 pick last year, he's coming back. Eric Lucy, don't really know how you say this guy's name. He might come back, he might not, because he's projected to make 3.2, which, you know, we could probably get this type of guy for less than that, but he does give us some innings as well. So we might keep him around. Plus, he's a leader, so we might keep him around. Tariq Bin Abdud is going to be back. Juan Trujillo will be back once his injury is over. And then we have like this next tier of guys who could step up. Like Bob Durham could be an option for us in the pen. Luis Lozano, who has no clue where it's going, but he's got some nasty stuff. I mean, look at these pitches. And then Bobby Harlow does not have any options, but he's been decent for us. We like him. Ilwan Kim is somebody we still have. He has options as well. He's also a leader. Chris Bowman has one more option. Kind of has fallen off as a guy, but he's still like a decent enough guy to have around the organization. And then these are the 3 guys who will not be back. Ed Osterley, who we are offering a QO to. DeMario Esquivel, who was on a 1-year contract with us. And then Dong Kyun Bae, whatever his name is, side armor, who I thought was going to be better, but just was not. And those are the 3 guys we are moving on from. So as you can see here, Ed Osterley, the current salary is 23.6. We submitted the QO of 18.9. Because if you look to extend him, he wants multi-year $26 million. So we are just obviously not giving that to him. And if I had to imagine, he's declining the QO and we're getting a draft pick out of that. And Chad Josephat is interested in a long-term extension. I don't quite know if we want to do that. Maybe I would be interested in, I mean, it's already $21 million. Do we want to commit to something like that? I don't think so. I think we want to just give him the arbitration, let him convince us that he can pitch a full season. We'll give him something like, I don't know, this. Sure, boom. And he'll be playing for that. Eric Lucy, I think we're just not going to offer. Probably try to flip him for something if we can. I'd imagine that his trade value isn't anything great. Like if we just go, let's say all relievers, prospects, regulars, and veterans. Okay, there's a couple decent 45s here. This is a 50 guy I'm aware of who cannot limit home runs at all, and he's hurt. I think the A's had a guy who was like that as well. Yes, Chris Foltz here. Going to miss 10 months. Looks like he could be nasty, but coming off a torn UCL, and he's not going to pitch like the whole season, essentially. And that is brutal. It looks like Eric Olear is going to be our starting third baseman this year because Rocky Gusty just had another setback. Hasn't he already had a setback? No, he hasn't. This is his first setback, but he broke a bone in his elbow in August, at the very end of August, and had a setback. 9-month setback. So he's going to miss a decent chunk of 2043, which is not ideal. So now just a quick look. We take him out. We move Olear into that third base spot. Olear's probably the 9-hitter here, if I'd imagine. Caffin's here just as a guy to break up this string of righties. And then, yeah, it's the infield situation is something like this. Possibly bring in a couple guys that we could call up and down in the offseason here. But yeah, the lineup's probably going to look like this heading into opening day. And the pitching is probably going to look something like this, with this bullpen being some sort of like Nazario Carmona at the back end. And then like this is a tier of guys. Trujillo is in the middle of these two because we don't know what he's going to be like when he comes back from his torn labrum. And then we have like this next tier of guys. And then these are the guys that we are not bringing back. Also, I wanted to mention a guy that we have in AAA right now, Luis Sandoval. He was an international free agent signing before we got here. He's about to be 23 years old. He's a first baseman who has one of my favorite profiles in this game. He's not a power hitter. He is a contact hitter. He never strikes out. I would like the BABIP to be higher, but it's good enough. And he has really good gap power with 80 grade speed, hits line drives into the gaps, and then just hits doubles galore. Hasn't really done that too much in the minors, except for this 1 year in Honolulu we had. But he's looking like he might be a decent... I don't know if I'd ever start him, but like he's somebody we could call up and down. He'll probably end up on the 40-man because he is Rule 5 eligible. We also have like Alvaro Vizcaíno, who is Rule 5 eligible. He could take the place of Dorchinez or whatever his name was that we traded to the Dodgers. And we have now reached the point of the offseason where the awards have been given out. So the National League's MVP was Luis Arroyo of the Toronto Blue Jays. 7.8 WAR, 50 home runs, led the league in WAR, home runs, ribbies, runs, slugging. Pretty damn good player here for the Blue Jays, age 27 season. Our thing was just a collective effort this past season, so like we didn't have anybody who was in like the top MVP votes, but we did have Amancio getting some votes, Luis Rodriguez got some votes, Juan Ramirez got some votes, Morales got votes, Pineda got votes. While on the American League side of things, a Colorado Rocky has won the MVP award. Nelson Meza, the second baseman over in Colorado, putting up some really good numbers over there in the Rockies. 164 WRC plus, led the league there with average as well in slugging and OPS. A 359 BABIP. I mean, you would expect that with a 70 BABIP rating. And then Chris Aquino getting some MVP votes here as well. He put up a 35 home run season. He now has 397 career home runs. While in the National League, the Cy Young Award winner was Kadeem McKelton. He was the guy who we became aware of this year. He's this insane pitcher for the Royals. They had him, and they had Amari Collar on that staff this year. I mean, this guy is like the ideal pitcher. Really good stuff, really good movement, 70 grade control, 3 elite pitches, puts up an 8 WAR. The stamina is actually kind of not great, but, you know, still pitched 200 innings with 40 stamina, and he's a captain personality class. Incredible personality, just incredible player. John Taylor of the Cubs finished second, Carcamo of the Marlins finished third, and then Wilson Morales finished fifth in voting, and then even Luis Carmona getting some votes here for the Cy Young. That's how damn good he was in his age 24 season as our stopper. While on the American League side of things, the Cy Young was Josh Griffin. Look at this! Back number 1 and number 2 of the Expos. A clear number 1 in Josh Griffin, though. This right-hander, former second-round pick. Insane at limited home runs, at 0.6 home runs allowed. I mean, a 63 FIP minus, a 207 ERA, and a 6.8 WAR gets the American League Cy Young for the Expos. And then behind him was Luis Guerrero, who got hurt. Unfortunate for them. He's also wrecked now. So very unfortunate for the Expos, but at least they get some Cy Young votes. And then look at this, our old friend Mike Hoskins actually getting 1 single point. And then Kurt House also in the mix as well. The number 1 skipper in the National League was our man Vladimir De La Rosa, winning the World Series here in Oakland. He's been here for 2 seasons, won 99 games and then 108 games. Pretty crazy overall manager record there. And he wins the Manager of the Year here in 2043. And then the top rookie of the year here in the National League was Daniel Langarisa. It doesn't even matter that he did not play the full season. He played 93 games, 431 plate appearances, puts up a 3.3 WAR, 146 WRC plus, 35 doubles, 69 runs, a great walk K percentage there, 889 OPS, 404 OBP. A bit hot on the BABIP, but overall, very, very good season for the rookie from Venezuela. Gets the award. In the American League, it was this guy on the Yankees, Alan Slavin, who we saw in the postseason. We did not have any Silver Sluggers on the National League side of things. Jimmy O'Leary of the White Sox did get the catcher spot, though. Somehow got that over Juan Amancio, I guess. And then in the American League, were there any Angels? There were not. There were not any Angels. The National League Reliever of the Year, Carmona, got he got Cy Young votes, but somehow gets edged out for the NL Reliever of the Year by Andy Sankey of the Toronto Blue Jays. I mean, this guy is pretty good, but he was a single inning guy. Give it to Carmona. He's just more valuable. That's really no debate to that at all in my mind. And then we got some old friends here on this list like Zion getting some votes. And then in the American League, the winner from the New York Yankees was Sincere Mikel, the Wolf. We picked him up in that one playoff run in 2041 where he was really, really good for us. And then we even had a Gold Glove, multiple Gold Glove winners at first base. Juan Ramirez picking up his second Gold Glove. He won one in 2041 and then now again in 2043 after a 3.6 WAR season for us this year. And then also Wilson Morales getting his first Gold Glove. Copper Morales here putting up 191 and 2/3 innings pitched, and then also getting himself his first Gold Glove here in 2043. And then look at this, the wrecked pitcher / outfielder Bobby Coleman gets a Gold Glove. He's won it back-to-back seasons in left field here in the National League with the Atlanta Braves in 2042 and 2043. He's not a good pitcher at all anymore at this point, but he was good enough as a position player to win some awards here, put up a 2.5 WAR despite a sub 100 WRC plus. But last year he was really good, really, really good for them. And honestly impressive that he's able to put up 100-plus games appearance with this wrecked injury prone, which he's had since like 2036 or some shit like that. Well, no wonder why we can't trade Nesty Rojas. I forgot that there's a no-trade clause on his fucking deal. That's why we can't trade him. That's why he has no value, even with 100% retained, because he doesn't want to waive his no-trade clause. Alrighty, we are here approaching spring training, but before we actually get into that, we are going to go over our 2044 international free agent class. We went with the bulk approach this time. We did get a couple guys who I think have potential to be really good players that we got for not the max. So we were able to spread it out a bit more this season, as opposed to, I believe it was last year, we signed one guy. This year, the best of the bunch was Esteban Durame. He is a center fielder, probably more of a corner outfielder, really good personality. Looks like he could have an insane gap power and power combo with some eye and some BABIP as well. Left-handed hitter, 17 years old, out of the Dominican Republic. The very first guy we signed was this man right here, Bernaldine Pelletiero, the Golden Bomber. He is Brazilian-Japanese, another left-handed hitter, right-handed throw. Looks like he could have a good bat with a solid defensive profile as well. Maybe ends up at second base, but right now he is a shortstop for us. Oh, I should also mention Dorame signed for $1.7 million. Pelletiero signed for $1.9 million out of Brazil. Juan Morales this was one of the later guys we signed because he just looked like he could be a decent reliever. Horrible personality, but looks like he could be a decent reliever. We signed him for $700,000. Sergio Meza is another reliever that we signed. Looks like he could be decent. Left-hander. He was signed for $170K. Jorge Robles, another reliever, Venezuelan Colombian. He is a right-hander with some decent personality. He was signed for the minimum, $150K. And then that's Robles. Luis Castro is a catcher with some serious pop that we signed. Switch hitter as well. He's already durable. He was signed for $1,700. David Eligo is a Panamanian. Yeah, Panamanian with home run allowed. He was signed for the minimum, $150,000. Whatever, just I got to throw in the class, high work ethic. And then we signed another guy, a Panamanian, a right-hander, starter. Extreme fly ball we don't like, but he's got a good personality class. He was signed for, I guess that wasn't the minimum. I guess you can sign guys even lower. So $1,300 for him, or not $1,300, $130,000. What am I saying $1,300 for? And then the most interesting guy, who's probably never going to be anybody, but I was just like, I mean, we got to sign a guy if it gets generated from this country. He's Congolese. Habamana Yuta. He is a possible second baseman. Not a shortstop. We'll just set him to second base right now. Why not? Does not go up there, but switch hitter, Congolese. Maybe he turns out to be pretty something surprising. Who knows? But we signed him for 120,000 as well. Also, I'm just now realizing that Arturo Avitia, one of the Panamanian guys that we signed, is 6'11", 225. What is this guy doing? He should be hooping. And we have reached the end of the offseason. It is April 4th, 2044, which means it's time for the 2044 campaign. But before we actually get into that, as always, it's time to recap everything that happened in the offseason in one quick swoop. So, at the start of the offseason, we had the execution of the contract year option for Wilson Morales. So Wilson Morales is on our team for at least one more season. We will decide what to do with him at the end of the year when we get to that point. But for now, he's a part of our rotation. Both our assistant GM and our team trainer both retired, so we had to replace them. We also made a big trade. We picked up Chad Josephat, this starter from the Los Angeles Dodgers, in return for Joe Dorchinez, who is in AAA with LA right now. He's a glove-first shortstop, as well as Alejandro Aguilera, who's a possible really good starter, currently fragile already. I was willing to part with him. He currently apparently is the number 11 prospect in baseball. I don't believe that's the case when we traded for him, but that's always how it goes in this game. They never respect anybody in our organization until they leave. Then we also traded Jesus Sandoval to the Oakland A's. He is still on the A's. We got Chris Foltz, who is a possible interesting relief option when he comes back from this torn UCL. We weren't going to bring Sandoval back, so we traded for Foltz as just like hey, we'll get something for him. We did indeed sign Joe Wolf to be our trainer here. He has excellent across the board when it comes to rehabbing, legendary prevent arm, average prevent legs, good prevent other injuries, okay prevent back, and then the fatigue recovery doesn't really matter to me because, at least I think it doesn't really matter because we tend to do that anyways. Like if you look at our strategy here, I always bench guys once they reach 97% fatigue anyways, so it's not like we need guys coming back from 60% fatigue. We extended a bunch of guys, including Luis Rodriguez. You can see here to a 13-year, $179,600,000 extension. Luis Rodriguez, long-time Raleigh Oak player for us. Is it a bit risky to do this after his first good season with us? Possibly. But I mean, look at the fucking guy. Clearly, we want this guy long-term. He is signed through his age 35 season, potentially in 2056. And it's a very, very team-friendly deal, as much of a team-friendly deal as a 13-year deal can be. But the Mexican Luis Rodriguez will be here long-term. We also extended Eric Oliar to a 4-year extension, extended him to an extension. We signed him to an extension. He is now signed through what was going to be his rest of his team control, and then this last year, I believe, was 1 year of free agency that we bought out. At least I believe that's what it was. And then we threw in like an MVP bonus as like a cheeky little hey, you win MVP, which he's never going to do, obviously. But, he's with our team now as a super utility guy to play here. Help us out. Or actually, he's the starter right now because Rocky Gusty's still hurt, but the original plan was for him to be like a super utility guy who plays like every other day sort of thing at like a bunch of different positions, but right now he is our starting third baseman. We also signed Luis Carmona to a 7-year extension worth $77.5 million. The absolutely nasty reliever looks like he even improved a bit this offseason. He did indeed. Here in March 2024, in September as well. This was at the end of last year, but here in March 2024, his control actually went up. So you can see here, the guy is absolutely insane. Threw 136 and 2/3 innings out of the bullpen for us last year. He is once again going to be a member of our team, and he's on our team long term here, as we have signed him through his age 31 season in 2050, and that is a team option as well, so it guaranteed through age 30. Ed Osterley did indeed reject his QO, so we actually have a first-round supplemental pick for him rejecting that. He signed with the Atlanta Braves on a decent little 17.6. So he ended up getting multi-years, but he actually signed for less than the QO would have been. So he was asking for a bit too much there when we were trying to possibly look at re-signing him. Not that we really had an interest in that, but Ed Osterley, we're going to be seeing him in division this season. And then once free agency kicked off, we really did not sign too many players this year. It was just kind of like picking up guys on the edges of our roster because we basically have our core already in place. So Zion, he's back. We signed him to strengthen our already pretty insane bullpen on a one-year deal for $2.5 million. The lefty, the 35-year-old. Last year, he was with the Yankees. We faced him in the World Series, and I want to say that he, yes, was this it? Third place, 2042? No, this was... I could have sworn he got, votes for reliever of the year or something. Maybe he was, fourth or fifth place or something. But yeah, the guy's still obviously very, very good here late into his career. He recorded his 400th MLB save last year, and now he's on a team where he's not even the closer. Then in the Rule 5 draft, we actually took another former Yankee in Kwon Yu Shu. You remember this guy? He was on the Yankees postseason roster. The Australian right-hander, nasty stuff, 80-grade fastball, good changeup, sinker mix as well. Ground ball there, throws really hard. He was available in the Rule 5. And my rule is usually if it's like a guy is around 25-ish, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this guy now. If he's 23, I just chalk it up to being AI mismanagement. But 25, that's usually a rough guideline for me of being okay, we'll take him. So we took him. We also lost Brad Nisley to the Nationals in the Rule 5 draft, but he's whatever. He would have been a borderline reliever for us. Apparently he's starting for Washington, so who cares? Then we also made a couple waiver claims, and we lost some guys in waivers. We did lose Bobby Harlow. He's a member of the Tampa Bay Rays here. They claimed him off waivers from us because he was somebody that we did not have room for. So we waived and DFA'd him. They claimed him, and apparently they're going to try to start his ass. So we'll see how that goes for them. And then we made a couple claims. First one was Luis Montalvo, who is currently in AAA for us. He's a reliever who has options. Probably only going to spend 1 year for us, considering he is arbitration eligible to go up to $3 million next year. But, on the edge of the roster, cheap, 1 year, cheapish, I would say, 1 year deal sort of guy who has some decent stuff. 3-pitch mix, ground baller, can give you multi-innings as well. Felt like he was worth a shot to add to the mix, especially since he has options, like I mentioned. And then we also claimed Amari Bess off of waivers. When we did claim him, he was actually a 60 potential. It's gone down a bit since then, but this guy, I believe he was a high draft pick. 9th overall by Minnesota. But I've been aware of this guy for a bit, I feel like. And Miami just waived him, so we took him. We took him in waivers. He's starting the year in AAA for us. He's a corner outfielder / first baseman type of guy. Looks like he could have a decent bat. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, starting the year in AAA Spartanburg. And then we actually made an interesting move on waivers. Edgar Ortega, I was just man, we really don't want this guy on the team here. I just kind of don't want him. So I was what happens if I waive him? Because I was oh, we're kind of getting at the point where we had too many guys, and I just was nobody's going to claim Ortega anyways. So let's just see if we can make some room on the 40-man here to bring in some of our guys that we signed. And the Braves just straight up claimed him. They were just outright hey, we'll take Edgar Ortega. So I'm sure, you want to roll the dice on this guy? Obviously, we signed him after this 7 more season to this long-term deal. Then he immediately fell off a cliff. He did get a little bit better last year, but still not quite anywhere near this, obviously. He is a valuable player, but I just, we got out from under this contract. The Braves took it. Sure, go ahead, see how it is. He's in division, as well as Ed Osterley. We'll see how it goes. And then a couple other guys that we signed here through free... Oh, we also tried that with Nesty Rojas, by the way. We were I wonder if they'll claim Nesty Rojas. They did not. So Nesty Rojas is once again a member of the Raleigh Oaks this season. And then a couple other edge-of-the-roster sort of guys that we signed. Tanioka here, a Japanese right-hander, currently in AAA. Throws really hard. Fastball cutter mix, has some good stuff. Was really good in AAA at Memphis last season. Now he's a part of our organization. He has a ton of options. Really good personality class. Just a guy to add to the mix for us in the bullpen. We also added Yes, Sergio Frail. This was the guy I was aware of last offseason I was looking at. He was available, just an edge of roster guy, has some crazy stuff, fastball, curveball, screwball mix. The home runs allowed is a problem. He's also fragile coming off an injury. He has options. Just a guy to add to the mix. Once again, another guy we signed, Nelson Alvira. He unfortunately came back from his injury. He is wrecked. But, nasty stuff. Good two-pitch mix here. I mean, just an insane, like, sweeper sort of guy. Slider, curveball, splitter, cutter. Throws hard. I mean, no wonder why the guy's wrecked. He's just throwing these pitches that are just, like, insane movement. I mean, it says he throws 97 to 99. I guess he's throwing the cutter 97 to 99. We also picked up a backup catcher. Luis Marrero is our backup this season. Decent enough defensively, okay-ish offensively. He's durable, switch hitter. He'll be the backup for Manacio. It's Manacio, right, isn't it? Amancio. And then another guy we picked up here on the edge of the roster. He's actually on our team here as a reliever. Tim Bayer. Not Bayer Leverkusen, Tim Bayer. Left-handed pitcher, spent the past few seasons with Atlanta here, in their rotation even. We signed him as a starter, but he's much better as a reliever for us. Really good personality class. Still has an option, pretty cheap as well. Interesting guy to add to the mix on our bullpen. And that was really all we added to the roster this season. One thing that we do need to talk about, though, is very unfortunately Juan Nazario did get like a nagging, what was the injury? Finger blister in spring training, missed 2 weeks with that, and he came back from it, boom, wrecked. So Juan Nazario, 26 years old, all of a sudden wrecked now. I mean, this guy has been injury prone since we got here. So we got here that 2039 into 2040 offseason where he was coming off a year where he had acute elbow soreness. And then we successfully completed training his strength and conditioning. Did not mean anything. He ended up immediately getting acute elbow soreness again. Then he came back from that, ended up getting a strained shoulder. We brought him back on a league minimum sort of deal. Or literally league minimum. He had a finger blister. He suffered a setback from the finger blister. Not really sure how that happens. We once again successfully completed his training of strength and conditioning. Didn't matter. Shoulder inflammation, 5 to 6 weeks. Then we unsuccessfully completed his strength and conditioning, and then he was pretty much healthy, I would say. He's just had a lot of finger blister issues, I'm now realizing. Finger blister. He had elbow tendonitis for 2 to 3 weeks, then he wins the World Series, and now another finger blister, and he once again, now he's wrecked. So, very unfortunate for us, but hopefully he's one of these guys who's wrecked but is still able to put together a decent amount of innings for us. I mean, he's only a single inning guy, so. But as far as what our team is currently looking like, the starting rotation and bullpen, we have Jake Graham because I biffed it and I wanted it to be Morales. I wanted it to be righty, lefty, righty, lefty, righty, but I kind of biffed it with the spring training rotation, and Morales is only going to be ready for tomorrow. So we're going to go Jake Graham, Wilson Morales, Santiago Mendoza, then Josephat, and then Mike Cinquemani in that 5th spot. Honestly, kind of even tempted to do like this because this guy needs to prove it to me still. So I think we're going to do that, actually. So it's going to be Graham, Morales, Mendoza, Cinquemani, then Josephat. And in the bullpen, like I said, Nazario, single inning closer, the double-barreled stopper action of Luis Carmona, and Zion Hippolyte, the veteran left-hander. Kurt Holmes in the bull. I haven't done the roles for these guys yet, so it's probably going to be something like use more often for Holmes and Bayer probably. No. I think we're going to leave these guys on normal, and we'll probably have something like Trujillo is the right-handed long relief, you're the left-handed long relief. Shu will throw on as like, no, maybe not setup. We'll put like Holmes as the setup guy, secondary role. Bayer will be like secondary stopper, I guess. I think he could probably fill that in pretty damn well. And then we'll have Shu as just sort of like the mop-up secondary, because why not? So yeah, the middle relief guy is Kurt Holmes, picked up last year at the trade deadline from Arizona. Tim Bayer, who we talked about, brought him in the offseason from Atlanta. Eric Lucy, who we brought back for another season, left-hander, gives us bulk out of the bullpen, high leader, work ethic. Shu, the Australian we got from the Yankees in the Rule 5 draft, hard thrower. And then Juan Trujillo back once again as a fan fave. While on the hitting side of things, lineups are the same against both sides. Leading off, DHing is Daniel Langarisa. Left fielder, Luis Rodriguez. Catching is Juan Amancio. First base, Juan Ramirez. Left field, Luis Carriego. Then we have the switch hitting shortstop, Will Caffin in the 6-hole. Santiago Tapia hitting 7th and playing 2nd. Jesus Pineda in center field. And then rounding things out will be Eric Olear at the 3rd base position. Until Rocky Gusty comes back from his injury in 4 months, and then we will have to make a decision with him. Obviously, after a lengthy rehab assignment. While the bench players is Luis Marrero is our backup catcher. Langarisa is going to be getting some first base and second base time as well, with Cooperman and Rubin mixing in as the second utility guy. And then Rubin, third base and shortstop as well. Nesty Rojas is the main backup corner outfielder. Cooperman is the main center fielder, with Cooperman secondary in the corners. We'll put Rojas as the secondary center fielder as well, just because we want to have one of those guys and he can play it decently well. Whereas the pinch hitters are Rojas, Rubin, Cooperman, and Cooperman with his 80 speed and stealing, with Rojas right behind him as the other pinch runner. Honestly, against righties, against lefties. Yeah, so I think we should flip these guys against lefties. And that's going to be the only change against righties and lefties, is that these guys get flipped. And then, like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, or beginning-ish of this video, I did not biff it, I did not screw up this year. We did get 2 runs of the development lab here. So in the first run, Luis Rodriguez did indeed improve his plate discipline. You can see here is up to 50. We did not quite get a potential boost on it, but still, it is no longer 45, it is now 50. Luis Carriego does indeed improve his strength and conditioning. He is still fragile, but now he's just somewhat fragile. No improvement on Carmona's durability, unfortunately. Langarisa does not improve his bat speed. Will Caffin does not improve his bat speed either. Jaquan Eggerson did improve his bat speed by 5, though. Going to start the year in AAA for us, but he's looking like an absolute dude. And then we have Mike Rubin, who improved his power by 5. You may have noticed that. Can I click, please? On his profile here with 60 power now, with that defensive capability as well. Maybe finally going to be a bit better of an offensive player for us, hopefully. And then the final one we had in that block of development lab stuff was Luis Banazal. We tried to improve his secondary pitch because I figured it was going to improve his sinker as his secondary pitch, but instead it actually improved his cutter by a shit ton. The potential went up by 10, and the stuff improved by a little less than 5. So his cutter now is looking pretty insane, and the sinker still as a 45. And then within the next block of Dev Lab guys, basically all base stealing and position stuff, we started off with Juan Amancio. Or we'll start from here. Eggerson improved his defense in right field by 5 with the range, a little less than 5 with the arm and the error. You can see he's a little bit better now in right field. Love to see that. Like I said, looking like a dude. Luis Rodriguez improved his stealing and aggressiveness by 5, so you can see he might be swiping quite a few bags for us this season, on top of the fact that he is an elite hitter. Then there's Will Caffin, who improved his stealing as well, both of these by 5. You can see he might be swiping a decent amount of bags for us as well. Santiago Tapia actually did improve his second base. A little less than 5 for his arm and his range and his double play, but then a 5 for his error. You can see he's now a 70 grade second baseman. Outstanding improvement for learning new position for Eric Olear. I just kind of like rolled the dice. I thought like maybe he would get like a boost to like the outfield or something, learning that. No, he just improved. Did he actually improve? Yeah, he did improve his error and double play by a little bit, and he learned to play first base. So, whatever. And then Amari Bess, he also learned a new position. He learned new first base. All this stuff improved a ton because he was not actually really able to play first base before I did this. His error improved by 10. The other stuff improved by 5. You can see much better of a first baseman now. All this stuff looks much, much more competent. This was all down in the reds. And then Daniel Langarisa did improve his defense as well. So he is the DH, but he is now looking like a little bit more competent of a second baseman with a 60 grade second base, and then a really good first base as well, even up to 75. But we're obviously not going to play him there because Juan Ramirez just won Gold Glove at first base. We're going to keep playing him there. But Langarisa is going to mix in at first and second base a little bit as a backup whenever guys need rests. And then the only one that was poor this offseason was Juan Amancio trying to prove his defensive ability at catcher. Fortunately, it did not have any noticeable changes, so that's good to see. He's still the same guy he was, so that's good to know. And then the other thing I should mention from guys who were on the edge of the roster here, Alvaro Vizcaíno, the Cuban shortstop we have, who was an international free agent signing in 2039, spent last year split between Fond du Lac in High A, Trenton in Double A, and Spartanburg in Triple A. Wasn't really anything too special anywhere. He had like a decent amount of time, but at a small sample size in Double A. You can see here, just 75 range, really good infielder, might have a decent amount of pop. And this spring training, he went nutso. You look at his batting splits here. He made 29 games, only 5 starts, 58 plate appearances. He had a 199 WRC plus with 4 doubles and 7 home runs, 20 ribbies, 12 runs, a 4-digit OPS. BABIP wasn't even that insane. When I was simming, he just kept popping up in like when you're simming like this way, when you just go to like a next month or something, and it shows you like the leaderboards as you're simming. He was just constantly top of the thing like the whole spring training. So I don't know where that came from, but this guy maybe going to be primed for a jump this season. We'll have to see. Yeah, you can see right here, I pull it up. The spring batting leaders led all of spring training in RBI. Luis Rodriguez was up there as well. He was tied for second in home runs, Vizcaíno was. He was third in slugging, behind a guy who's won an MVP. He had the second most total bases. Rodriguez had the first. Rodriguez also had the tie for first on hits, and he was second in runs. Extra base hits, Vizcaíno and Rodriguez. So, you know, what I'm always saying, you know, this guy, very similar to this guy. I've always said that. I've always said they're similar prospects when it comes to hitting. But as far as the preseason predictions go, the New York Yankees, last year's American League champions, predicted to win 102 games and win their division once again. The Red Sox with 95 wins right behind them. Whereas also the Phillies, the Pirates, they're projected to finish last, but they actually made a big splash in free agency. They signed former Angel farmhand and longtime Atlanta Braves catcher Cesare, the Australian switch-hitting catcher. Didn't really move the needle for them because they're still projected to be last place, but you know, they made a splash in free agency. Whereas in the Pacific Division, our former team, the Los Angeles Angels, projected to win that division with the Dodgers right behind them, and then a bunch of like slop behind them from the Giants downward. Chris Aquino making an appearance here in the top hitters at the very bottom of the list here. This is not Juan Padilla. That's Jorge Padilla. Okay. Ernesto Pimentel also making a appearance on the top pitchers in the American League, whereas on the National League side of things, the Chicago Cubs are projected to win the Great Lakes Division with 95 wins, followed by the Reds, Blue Jays, White Sox, and Tigers, all projected anywhere in the 80s. And then we are projected to be the best team in Major League Baseball with 111 wins, 221 home runs. I mean, scoring 835 runs, only allowing 576. That's got to be the lowest. Yeah, they think our staff is going to be just absolutely nutso with a 3.34 staff ERA. And I mean, we do have a damn good staff, I will say. But, you know, 111 definitely lofty, but we'll see how it goes with the Braves, the Royals, and the Astros behind us by quite a lengthy margin. And then once again, in classic OOTP fashion, putting zero respect on any of our guys here. They think we're going to be this generational team, but they think that all of our top hitters are not good enough to appear in the top hitters list. But they do actually think that we have Jake Graham appearing in the top pitchers list, I guess because he's the guy that we have with a slow hook, trying to utilize the fact that he's a starter with really good stamina, and he's had like 200 inning pitch seasons in his past, and then just below 200 as well when he was in Miami. Like, they think that Ed Osterley is going to be a better pitcher than some of the guys we have in our staff. I mean, come on. But there you have it. That is what the Raleigh Oaks are looking like heading into the 2044 campaign. Look at these position rankings. Third at catcher, first at, I mean, just look at this. We're 13th in two of these that are worse because they have Ruben ranked more than Caffin, because even though we're starting him, I guess Caffin's only a 55, but I like Caffin more than Ruben, and Ruben is like a backup guy for us this season. They could possibly switch at some point, but at least to start the season after the year that Caffin just had, and after the stretch of the last like 3 years that Ruben's had, Caffin deserves the starting opportunity for us. I could probably honestly go like every fifth game for Ruben there. So I think we are going to do something like that. Or maybe like, what is Caffin against lefties? Okay, he's pretty good against, yeah. So we'll go every fifth game. Every fifth game for Ruben at shortstop. And now we are ready for the 2044 campaign.